So, here we are doing a video I wasn't planning to do for a while. This is my Star Citizen rig rundown. We have to start with the computer. I built this computer just for Star Citizen, but now it's being used for gaming pretty much any game that I happen to be playing at the time, to video editing, to even audio recording. I actually did a blog about building this computer, so now I got pages of notes to work from. I'll put a link in a blog in the description. I started out with an eMachines computer that had been given to me, but then I replaced every part in it, starting with the case. I actually went with a Cooler Master and Logitech build, mostly due to price, but also availability. I find they make pretty good products at a reasonable price, so I figured, hey, why not? So let's start with the case. I used a Cooler Master HAF, which stands for High Airflow, 912. It was cheap and available. Granted, with a little skill you can build your own case, or even just a mount for the components. You can mount the thing on the wall if you want. But I want to be better at organization, so I got to put things in their own little box. And in that box, powering it, is a Cooler Master M2 Silent Pro power supply, spitting out 1,000 watts of goodness. I went through 3 motherboards on this build, and I'm still not entirely happy with what I have. Not that it's not a good board, but it just doesn't have absolutely everything that I wanted, so it's an upgrade in the waiting. I went with a MSI board, mostly due to what I had on hand at the time. I walked into the store, I said I need a motherboard. They said, we have this one. I said, here's my money. That's it. In that board, I've got a Intel i5 4-core 3.4 gigahertz processor and 16 gigs of RAM. For storage, I've got a 240 gig SSD from Kingston that holds the operating system, Star Citizen, and a couple other, utilities here and there. But due to the fact that we have limited reads on this drive, I wanted to keep it light. So I picked up a 1 terabyte Western Digital black drive for my main storage. I do plan on actually getting 2 more of them, setting up a RAID 5, just so that I can reap the benefits of speed and security. And on top of that, I've also got a 500 gig drive that's just for videos at this point. But since it's a notebook drive, I'm likely to pull it out at any moment and get one of my notebooks working. I swapped out the optical drive so many times on this build that I think I ended up with a LG DVD burner. Most things don't even need a optical drive anymore. You're downloading 3/4 of your stuff, or you're getting it on a USB drive or whatever. You don't necessarily need an optical drive, but I'm old, so I get them. For a video card, I started off with a GTX 750 Ti for budget reasons, and honestly, I can't say enough about this card. It's a good card. It puts out good graphics, and it's comparable to what's current. And on top of that, it doesn't have any specific power requirements. It puts out a lot of power without taking in a lot of power. But I've since upgraded that to a GTX 770. So keeping this all cool is the job of all the extra fans that I've crammed in this case. I've moved around a number of fans that came with the case, but I've also added a pair of 200mm fans from Cooler Master. These are 20 centimeters, which is 2/3 of a foot. They move a lot of air. The best thing about them is that they're very quiet. Cooler Master also built the CPU's heatsink, and that what I'm using right now is a Hyper 212 Evo. Now that we've got the computer out of the way, onto what's plugged into it. For primary controls, I've got my SteelSeries Merc Stealth keyboard, which is backlit and has a bunch of programmable keys on the left-hand side. And I have a Logitech G700S, which is a cordless mouse that comes with a cord. You can plug it in, the cord powers it, and will recharge it as well. I wanted cordless because of the freedom and the not having to have a cord, but I find that I use it corded all of the time just because I like having that security to have a cord. On top of this, I've got a Logitech G13, which is a little keyboard thing that goes off to the side. It's got you can program 3 different sets of programming into it, and it's just a 22 key keyboard with 8-way hat and 2 other buttons as well. For the most part, I also use it as a system monitor, as it's got it built in. You can see your RAM and CPU usage at all times. So for audio, I've got a Logitech X540 speaker system hooked into the audio card on the motherboard. Quite often, since I'm in an apartment, I end up plugging cheap $7 set of headphones that I got at Walmart into it, which I'm actually really happy with those headphones, but they're cheap. And I also have a Sony PlayStation headset, which is the full deal. It's got, the mic on it and everything, and apparently surround sound, but I hardly ever resort to that. Right now, for audio going into the computer, I've got a Behringer mic hooked into a USB audio interface by Tascam. The audio interface is good because it'll allow me to hook in my mixing boards and record whatever music I'm working on that week. The reason I don't use a Tascam box for audio out is because it does actually have a little bit of lag. It's not even 1/10 of a second, but it is enough to be perceptible and thus annoying. For gaming, I've actually got a Logitech G25 racing wheel that's ready to play any racing game that I want, and I prefer it over the G27 because, well, for one, I've already paid the $350 for the G25. I don't want to pay another $350 for having an extra 4 buttons on the wheel. And for 2, I've actually played with my brother's G27. I prefer the G25. I've also got a pair of Logitech joysticks, one of them being the Extreme 3D Pro, the other one being the Wingman 3D Extreme. I also do use an Xbox 360 controller if I have no other choice. I've got all those pretty much hacked into a USB 2.0 interface that is supposed to go to one of the case mounts, but since I didn't have one, I just kind of rewired it internally. So right now for a monitor, I'm using an LG TV that is a 47-inch just because it's 1080p. That's my basic rig rundown for the Star Citizen computer. So I hope you liked this video and that you gave it a thumbs up for the cat. And don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe if you like. And until next time, this is Feck out.